So much anticipation. Welcome to Email Marketing Tips and Tricks for Success. We'll go ahead and give everyone just a couple more minutes to join, and we'll get started at 5:05. Hello, and welcome to the Marketing Alliance. Um, the Marketing Alliance is a Colorado-based collective of B2B marketing and communications professionals. My name is Erica Patton, and I'm a part of the programming team for the Marketing Alliance. The Marketing Alliance's name is new, but formerly known as BMA Colorado Chapter. We've been creating a network of business professionals for over 60 years. Our mission is to provide networking and learning opportunities for people just like you. In fact, becoming a member of the Marketing Alliance just became easier with our new member pricing of $129 annually. As a member of the Marketing Alliance, you can learn, network, and build skills and experience. You'll also be able to gain recognition and stay on top of the latest marketing trends, best practices, and new developments. More information is available on our website. Today's webinar is on email marketing tips and tricks for success. I'm joined today by Eli Snyder. Eli is a world-class technology strategist and currently serves as Technology Strategy Director at Intelligent Demand, where he helps clients navigate their ever-shifting MarTech landscape. He has over 10 years of experience in marketing automation, CRM, marketing technology, and integrated revenue strategy. He is passionate about developing innovative revenue technology solutions and is always happy to geek out with you about your tech stack. Eli, welcome. How did you get started in the industry?
Well, I was working as a webmaster for a small, medium-sized business, and I was in charge of their website. And my CEO attended a seminar on what at the time he called drip marketing. And he said, he came back from the seminar, he was all excited about it, and he goes, "Hey, Eli, could you figure out how to do this whole drip marketing thing? Like, what does that even mean, and how can we make use of it at our company?" So I started working on drip marketing, whatever that means, and that got me into the world of marketing automation and CRMs, and we eventually implemented Eloqua marketing automation and did a lot of really successful email nurture campaigns, and that got me started with it. And then I came to work at Intelligent Demand, which is an integrated revenue growth agency, and I've been doing this ever since. I love this field because it's so innovative. We're constantly learning new things, constantly meeting new challenges, and so it's been a great ride.
Awesome. Well, great. We also have Brittany Burke with us. Brittany Burke is a Senior Director and Client Partner at Oracle and has over 13 years of experience in email, digital, and loyalty marketing with a focus on client management. Her experience includes managing global accounts across B2B and B2C within retail, healthcare, travel, tech, and media. Brittany's professional passion is building relationships and collaborating with teams that bring the creative solutions to her clients. Brittany, how about you? How did you get started?
Thanks, Erica. Mine is kind of a left turn. I had planned to be in broadcast journalism, went to school for that, did some internships, and when that didn't necessarily work out for me, I made that left turn into marketing, and I realized I could continue to build those relationships and tell those stories in a slightly different way. And so I find a lot of joy in bringing those people together, whether, in my previous goals, telling stories across the world, but in this way, I'm telling the brand stories and connecting the customers to those brands and making sure that their intended message is received.
Wonderful. So the way today's webinar is going to work is that Eli, Brittany, and I will run through a little bit of Q&A for about 30 to 35 minutes. And then towards the end of the webinar, we'll actually open it up for questions from all of our registrants. Please feel free to put your questions in the chat as we go. However, a reminder is that we won't actively take questions until the end of the presentation. We'll also be sharing Eli and Brittany's contacts at the end of the webinar. So let's get started. When compared to the rise of social media and various digital marketing counterparts, email marketing might be considered a little old school. However, this channel is still both highly relevant and incredibly effective. With some of its advantages, including client inbox delivery, personalization, and its cost compared to other marketing tactics, it's clear that email marketing continues to help B2B marketers reach their audience and grow in their business. However, with highly effective emails that are only achieved in tandem with the key best practices. So chatting with our panelists, we'll review kind of what they consider to be some of the most effective practices that marketers can implement to crush their open and click-through rates to become a genuine source of knowledge for their subscribers. So let's get started with the first question. With the amount of media customers, clients, and consumers consume on a daily basis, how do you build your subject lines to stand out from the noise and ensure strong open rates?
Yeah, I would say that, obviously you want it to be clear, short, concise, and very direct. We want it to be honest. I think we've all fell victim to clicking or opening something and it not being exactly what we expected. But I would say, and really to stand out, you want to leverage personalization. So whether that is first name, whether that is, we know you've just spoken with your sales rep or any sort of action you've taken, it'll really show that whoever you're speaking with knows you, knows where you've been and why you're communicating with them.
I think that's great, just like that human touch and when it comes in through email, because there's just so much noise that you really are trying to make that, hi, open my email first. So with that, oh, Eli, do you want to add?
Well, I wanted to add to that. I mean, I would say the short answer to that is that your subject line should be a clear, concise statement of your campaign's value proposition. But a broader answer would be that, your email marketing strategy is rooted in your go-to-market. So you have to start with a strong understanding of your audience. What are their pain points? What are the problems that they're trying to solve? What are the things that are keeping them up at night? And craft an offer that's part of your marketing campaign that really appeals to them and offers them a lot of value. Like what we often say at Intelligent Demand is it's not a high value offer unless it hurts to give it away for free. You should be giving people something that they are going to get genuine value out of and that helps them solve a problem that's really relevant to them. And so once you have that strategy worked out of what are we going to offer people that is compelling and really gives them genuine value, then your subject line just needs to be a clear, concise statement of what that value proposition is. No nonsense, no tricks, just this is what we're offering you that you're going to get something out of. People have seen all the tricks. We've all seen all this, sales pitches and things like that. You want to just be straight with your audience. This is what you're going to get out of engaging with this campaign.
That's great. Yeah, I think so many times I've seen cluttered subject lines and things like that. One thing that I was thinking of as we're talking is around pre-header text. So with that in mind, in marketing, we understand how important that pre-header text is, but are there certain keywords that you would use to create stronger open rates, or how important is that?
Yeah, I would say, I don't know that it's exactly about having particular keywords in your pre-header, but again, the pre-header is the text, as we all know, that's the first text that appears after the subject in an email client. You can code specific pre-header text in so that it shows the subject line of the email and then the pre-header text, right? So it should be a continuation of explaining what's in it for me. What am I going to get out of opening this email? What's the reason why I should engage with your campaign? So again, just make it clear and concise and direct to the point. There's not like a particular set of magic keywords that you can use there, but just that it should be clear and give them an idea of why they're going to get something out of engaging with your campaign.
Yeah, I would agree that there's no magic bullet here, but it does give you an opportunity. It's especially important when you're viewing on mobile. It gives you a little bit more information from the subject line. But again, to Eli's point, it needs to be clear, it needs to be concise, and it needs to be honest. I mean, we can't be kind of promising something, but it's a high level overview of what you can expect if you give us the chance to get into that email.
Great. So we've got our strong subject line. We've got some really gritty pre-header text. Now let's dive into, like, you've got the email, you get it open. How about images? does image choice impact the CTA, and how should kind of the best structure of an email look to make sure that the email's visually appealing, but also that you can articulate your message clearly?
Yeah, there definitely needs to be a good mix of images to HTML. You don't want all images in case there's any sort of rendering issues or loading issues. But you know, to Eli's earlier point, I think that it all depends on what you're trying to convey. You don't want to have an image of a product if you're trying to be more relational, and vice versa. If you're giving your customer a lot of information about something that they need to purchase, you probably don't need to show a kind of a touchy-feely picture of people shaking hands. Maybe show them a picture of the product, really make it relevant, and let the point of the message drive how it is designed. If it's something of getting a call back, make your call to actions really clear and upfront. If you need them to have a little bit more information before they make a choice, feel free to put that call to action a little further down. I mean, you really need to let the origin and the desire of that email drive sort of how that's built.
Definitely agree with that. One thing I would add is that you don't necessarily always need to use images in emails. So I think you want to make good use of images if you're going to use them. But there's also a case where if you're sending an email that's highly personalized and it looks as though it's coming from the sales rep who's going to be engaging with the prospects in the campaign, it sometimes makes more sense to do an email that actually just looks like an email coming from a human. If you're promoting an event or you're promoting a webinar or something like that, or you're doing kind of general educational materials, or you're promoting, you know, a white paper or something, then it makes sense to have imagery and have that imagery be really relevant to the campaign. But if you're sending a direct personalized message that's supposed to be a communication from one human to another, like I wouldn't put an image in an email that I just sent directly to you, right? Why would I do that? And so there's a time for using images, and then there's a time for just using plain text and using an email that looks like it comes directly from a person.
Yeah, that's all super helpful, because it is one of those where, like, say I get something from the Loft, I might be like, oh, it's just another sales email. But if I see from Brittany, it's like, oh, who's this Brittany person? What do they have to offer? So I think that really is kind of a great tip for really framing up your emails.
Yeah, and to Brittany's earlier point about personalization, that's where personalization comes in too, right? If your email really looks like it was sent one-on-one, you know, from an individual to another individual, that can be much more effective.
Awesome. So I know that in kind of like this state of working from home, I have become the absolute worst at checking emails on my mobile phone. HubSpot actually reported that 46% of email is being checked on mobile in 2020. So with that world being so mobile centric, what do marketers need to keep it top of mind when creating emails for mobile to help ensure the success of open rates and click-throughs?
Yeah, everyone should be designing emails with mobile first. You know, that should just be best practice. It needs to be responsive design, modular fashion, make sure that your most important message is up front and center. But interestingly enough, you know, to that point that you were just mentioning about checking your email, Oracle recently did an analysis where we thought that same thing. People are probably using their desktop more often than their mobile device. And we actually found that wasn't the case in several different verticals, that people are still using their mobile device, whether they're on a Zoom call and checking it while they're multitasking, whether you're just checking emails more often while you're at home and not commuting, but still it's really relevant. So it needs to be top of mind when you're thinking through that.
And I would say make use of tools to test your emails on, you know, on different devices. So there are tools like Litmus, Email on Acid. There's a few others that you can use where you send the email to an email address associated with the tool, and it'll show you how it'll look across various different devices, and make sure that your email looks good, that the images are sized right, that the text, you know, makes sense, that when you first pull it up, it's getting the most relevant information above the fold on lots of different devices, because yeah, people are definitely checking their emails on a wide variety of devices.
in my past life when I was in email marketing. As I was telling you guys a little bit before we started this call, we used Litmus, and it was incredible to see really what was coming up, like what was bubbling up to the surface that worked well or what didn't, and then kind of iterating with the team on how can we solve to make these emails better. So great tool recommendations, Eli. So then,
yeah, the good news is a lot of the ESPs these days, that functionality is built in so that you can also, it'll automatically sort of detect what is being viewed on and ensure that it's serving that up. So marketers are making it easy for you, which is good.
Very good, yes. So then switching gears a little bit into best practices of email deployment, let's check a little bit around the cadence, segmentation, time of day for sending emails. So for me, I receive the skim every morning, and I love that they arrive in my inbox first thing in the morning. Do you have any recommendations around the best time of day or week to send emails?
Yeah, I would say it's not a one size fits all. So Erica, I'm actually also a Skim subscriber. I like to read it in the morning as well. But what we found is that we can't just assume that everybody is like us and likes to read it at that time. You know, many people might, for news, I know it would make sense to definitely get it for the beginning of the day, but some people might like to focus on work to start, and maybe they do it before dinner. What we found is, you know, to the point around testing and ensuring that we're doing what the customer needs, I would test as much as possible to figure out what is truly the best time for the majority of your audience, if you have to do it that way. There's also several tools that are built into several providers that can do send time optimization and really make it individual. You know, what is your preferred time, Erica, versus my preferred time versus Eli's preferred time? And I mean, the results that you see on that are astronomical. It's really, once you make it one-to-one, it's really impressive.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. Make use of the technology that enables you to optimize send time, because it can vary a lot depending on your audience and the nature of your segmentation. As far as segmentation is concerned, again, personalization is really key. So make sure that you're giving the right message to the right people at the right time, and your modern technology makes it possible for you to really deeply segment your audience. And so understand the different segments of you may be going for one very specific persona, especially in the B2B world, a different set of working habits than other personas do. So understand your audience and tailor your campaigns accordingly.
And that actually really dovetails well into my next question that I have, kind of around the cadence of emails. So some people like the Skim, they send out every morning emails, some are weekly, some do a monthly newsletter. Do you have any best practices or tactics that you would recommend for engaging with non-openers?
Yeah, definitely. So the double open strategy, or what we sometimes call a double tap, really works well. So it's a good way to get multiple, basically more than one email out of the same email. So you send an email, send a second email a few days later with the same content but a different subject line to people who didn't open the first email. It's a very simple, straightforward tactic. We've found that it works really well to enhance open rates because you're basically getting a chance at the same audience with the same email. So makes a lot of sense to do that. We pretty much always do that. It only costs you the time it takes to write one additional subject line. Really easy to implement using your marketing automation tool. So yeah.
Great. That kind of segues really well into a scenario. So let me set this scenario up, and let's see if you guys can help me with it. So let's say I'm running an email campaign where I've been engaging with A/B testing. How and when do I interpret my split test results, and how often should I be running these tests?
Yeah, I mean, to answer your last part of your question, you should be testing all the time. There's always something to learn. It should never end. You've never learned all the things that you can learn from a test. But to answer the first part of when to look, it's really going to depend on what the audience size was. You need wherever you're going with that to be statistically significant. And I would even add, if your volume allows, which I know is not always the case in our B2B space, but try to do a test and roll, meaning that you'll do a small portion with the A/B test find out what the winner is, and then roll out the winner to the biggest part of your audience. It will really maximize your results. But again, that's all going to depend on how big that audience is and how long you can let it sit.
Yeah, a lot of marketing automation tools have the ability to automate that whole process. So you do the first segment of the audience as an A/B test, and then it automatically picks the winner for you and sends the winning combination to the rest of the audience. It's a good idea to make use of that. I mean, there's a formula for statistical significance, but most email marketing tools give you a tool that does the math for you, figures out when your results are statistically significant, allows you to figure that out. Keep in mind, though, that the important thing about statistical significance is that the smaller the difference you're trying to measure, the larger the sample size needs to be before you get a significant result. So if you're targeting a small audience, which is often the case in B2B, if you're going to run an A/B test or a split test with that, you need to be testing major changes, like not necessarily small tweaks to your subject line or something like that, but test one offer against another offer, or test, one version of your value proposition against a completely different concept for your value proposition. Something that's going to make a big difference, because with a small sample size, you're not going to be able to measure tiny differences very effectively. If you have a very large audience and a huge sample size, then then you can test, what does the word order of the subject line matter, or something like that. So small changes, and try to optimize for very small changes in your open rates and click-through rates. But with a small sample size, you have to make a major change in order to see effect.
As you're talking, Eli, I'm having flashes back to my college statistics class of significance and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, that really does play into it. If your difference between your two versions is too small to meaningfully measure, then you're seeing random noise, right?
It's really true. Yeah.
So
anyway. I love it. So then with Google and other email platforms kind of doing this auto applying into social promotions and spam filters, what tips can you share with cleaning and scrubbing lists to ensure that subscribers are engaged and that their emails aren't hitting spam?
Yeah, it's really best practice to be keeping an eye on your list and keeping those that are not engaged out. And obviously, we want to keep as many customers as we can. So leveraging re-engagement plans, or even modeling for lookalikes of, this looks like someone that will be, opting out soon or unengaging soon. It's important to keep an eye on that. And the ISPs really do keep an eye on how you are cleaning your list. I mean, it's really important. And we all might think like, oh, it's not worth it. We can just throw some extra people in this, but it's just not worth it. You'll get blocked, and it'll take a long time to get your reputation back up.
Yeah. The best practice, of course, is to send only to opted-in lists, to try to send only to an engaged audience. With the rise of account-based marketing, though, we've seen a lot more sending of email to cold lists. It's not really the best practice, but there are times when you're trying to reach every member of a buying committee for a complex sale, and you need to purchase some data from a data provider and send to people who haven't opted in to your emails. In that case, you want to be really careful about your data quality. Use an email scrubbing service or some kind of an email validation service. Lots of those out there, to validate the emails that you're sending to. So that you make sure you're sending to, to good addresses, that sort of thing. And make sure that your messaging is highly relevant to your target audience. So if you're going to target an audience cold, that hasn't opted into your email specifically, be very careful about specifically targeting that messaging to those personas, so that you've got relevant messaging that they're likely to engage with. Because if people are complaining that your message is spam, or if you get low engagement rates, that can lead to being blocked.
Great advice. So then we've got just a couple minutes left before we switch over to Q&A. I wanted to chat through a little bit more strategy and kind of get under the hood of implementing an email campaign. So starting out, how can I apply strategic thought to growing my list? What tips do you have for driving traffic to a website? As well as how do you target a buyer persona to drive them to sign up?
Yeah, one thing that I would start with on growing your list is really thinking about where your customers are engaging with your brand. I think I've worked with many clients in the past that don't even have an email sign up on their website. And it's such an easy place, but working with their IT team might be too challenging. Also consider social areas or events. These are places where you can get that email address to start engaging with them. As long as you're being upfront about what you're doing, that's always important. Again, that integrity and that honesty. We can't just kind of sneak in and get somebody. I think we've all been victims of that too, where it's like, I never signed up for these emails and why are they clogging up my inbox? So I would just say, be creative about how you're doing that, and then have that integrity on the relationship moving forward.
I guess one thing I would add to that is that with the rise of account-based marketing, in B2B marketing, we've been seeing a lot of buzz about account-based marketing. We've been really successful with account-based tactics with a lot of our clients recently. And with account-based marketing, the key is the segmentation of your audience. So understanding how your value proposition of your product fits in with your audience's needs and pain points, and really tailoring your messaging and your value proposition around that audience. So understand, what are the primary pain points of your audience? What is the problem that your product solves for them? And really look at it from their point of view. And then what's their role in the buying process? So different people at a company might have different roles in the buying process. You want to make your campaign fit with their role on the buying committee. Are they a primary decision maker? Are they an advisor or an influencer? If it's an influencer, what kind of materials can you give them to help them sell in your product to their boss or to the person who is the decision maker? That sort of thing. So that makes it more relevant to the specific persona and the role that they play in the buying process. And that way they're much more to engage with your content rather than just sending the same message to everybody.
I think that's wonderful. And with like the rise of influencers, right? I mean, you scroll through Instagram or Facebook and you see somebody who's posting about a brand and you want to be a part of it. I signed up for one today. It was like notes from the universe. Somebody had a swipe up and I was like, I will enter my email because I want to be a part of that. So I think engaging with your customers in a way that you are finding the right buyer group or the right persona that you're looking for is really crucial to help ensure that your brand can have a long-lasting impact. So say that you have this buyer group and these customers and clients signing up for my website, for my emails. How might I drive a basic lead gen campaign? What do I need to look out for? Or if you guys have any examples of successful lead gen campaigns and kind of what those results are, would you be able to speak to that?
Yeah, at a high level, when you've got somebody new that you want to start communicating with, I always think it's a great opportunity to set the stage about what they can expect from you, from the brand. And providing all of that on a silver platter will really set their expectations as they start to receive communications. And I find that if you tend to mail a little bit more, that's always very helpful because it's not a surprise. They tolerate that a little bit more. But what I would also say is really important as they are experiencing any sort of kind of lead nurture campaign with you is let their signals drive the next communication. So you might see that somebody's a little bit further down the funnel and you need to let them get where they need to get right then and there. Don't be stubborn about where you are in your marketing process, but they've got 5 more touches before they need to, they're really getting that consideration touch. Let those signals dictate that and listen to your customer. In this day and age, we know that brands know a lot about us and we expect that they're going to leverage that for their marketing purposes.
I think that your email nurture campaign should be part of an integrated campaign strategy that's multi-channel and approaches the audience from multiple different angles. So an example that I would give is, we did an account-based campaign for a telecom company working in Latin America, and they had a very specific product that they were selling as a solution to a really obscure problem with trying to get internet service to remote areas of Latin America. And so we targeted the campaign at a very specific group of individuals. There were only a few hundred people in the entire campaign across the whole region. And and these people were extremely hard to reach. And so what we did was we coordinated our email marketing campaign with social media ads, with paid search ads, with content syndication, and also with a direct mail campaign. So we sent personalized gifts to these people. We coordinated the gift with the email campaign so that they would get a gift one day and then the next day they would receive an email referencing the gift. And we built the campaign around what we called a high value offer, which was a consultation with their experts about how to solve this particular problem that their product addressed. And it really resonated well with the audience because for one thing, we came at them from multiple different in multiple different channels at the same time with the same message. And the message was all coordinated around signing them up for a workshop that was really built around solving a problem that they had that was really relevant to them, that was really hard for them to solve on their own, and bringing this new technology that could help them solve this problem. And so, so I would say have your messaging be coordinated and multi-channel and centered around giving your audience something that has real value for them.
That's great. And I think kind of you touch upon there's so many different spots where that campaign could have slipped through the cracks, or something could have not gone quite according to plan, no matter how much prep you do. So say I have this situation where I am doing all the different steps that we've been talking about, and my open rate is still struggling a little bit. What are some things that I can do to fix that or to bring it back up?
Well, I mean, I think the first thing that I would say about that is open rate is not necessarily the only measure of the success of an email campaign. Look at your revenue results. So if you can, try to tie the results of your email campaigns to your actual revenue. So in the campaign that I was describing, for example, we actually didn't have a very good open rate relative to industry standards for B2B marketing, but we drove, because it was a very high value product, we drove a lot of revenue with that campaign, despite the fact that it didn't have the best open rate. And so, I mean, the first thing I would say is look beyond open rates to see what your actual revenue results are and try to tie your campaign results to revenue. If you have a multi-channel campaign that is really speaking to your audience and is driving sales results, maybe having the best open rate is not the most important thing. But having said that, again, it's about relevance to your audience. So if your open rate is struggling, think about whether your offer is compelling, whether what you're giving them has real value to them, or if it sounds like it's just another sales pitch. Because if it sounds like a sales pitch, people are just going to skim right over it. You have to offer them something that really drives value for them.
Yeah, and I would agree, almost taking it back to where Eli's point when we first started this is also, who are you mailing? It's not just about the open rate, it is, the point about the offer is great, but are you talking to the right people? Maybe you need to start further back and pull the right audience in, and then give them the right offer, and you'll see those metrics rise.
Great. Well, thank you both for your time. Let's go ahead and open it up to questions. I think I saw one in the panel. So anyone who has one, go ahead and drop it in. But Judy asked, can you give a good example of pre-header text?
Yeah, I would say it's definitely going to depend on your message. Think of it as an additional summary of what they can expect. So you've got your subject line, which is catchy and direct enough to get somebody to open it, but the pre-header if your message was an order confirmation, or they needed to schedule an appointment with their sales rep or something of that nature, just be very direct and keep it clear and concise. It just gives the customer one extra piece of information to know what they can expect when they open.
Yeah, and again, it's an opportunity for you to let them know what the value they're going to get out of engaging with your campaign. So an example from the campaign that I was talking about, this was about this obscure technology called mobile backhaul, and the subject line was sign up for our mobile backhaul workshop, and then the pre-header text was turn mobile backhaul into a profit center. So the problem these people had was that this technology was considered an expense. They were losing money on it, and the value proposition is, here we have a technique that we can turn this into a profit driver for your company. So we stated this is the call to action, sign up for our workshop, and then the pre-header text was, this is the value that you're going to get out of it. Turn your mobile backhaul into a profit center.
Great. Are there any other questions? Give everyone just a minute to drop them into the chat. It looks like we've got a raised hand. Hi, Cynthia, can you hear us?
Hey there, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Yes, I'd like to ask both Eli and Brittany what particular resources that they use to keep themselves abreast of the latest and greatest happening in email marketing.
That's a great question, Cynthia. There are several different, there's a lot of information out there. One thing that I will share in the chat before we're out is Oracle has a great ongoing newsletter and several blogs where they share a lot of this information. I would say that's not necessarily unique to Oracle. A lot of the companies do that from a knowledge share perspective. So those are some good places where I get some nuggets, which I will share here in the chat so you can leverage that.
I'd definitely like to keep up with analysts such as Topo, Forrester, Serious Decisions, those kinds of analysis. They often have really relevant content, not only about marketing technology, but about marketing strategy as well. So I would highly recommend Topo, Forrester, and Serious Decisions.
Great. And then Dee asked, how do you know what a good open and engagement rate is? Is there a certain percentage that we look for or anything like that?
Well, the thing is that varies a lot depending on your industry, the nature of your target audience, and that sort of thing. What you want to do is establish a baseline by measuring your current open and click-through rates, and then try to improve on that. It really varies a lot as to what's a good open or click-through rate depending on the nature of your content, the nature of your audience. So it's hard to give kind of a general all-purpose answer to that, but what you want to look for is trying to improve on your baseline.
Agreed. It's in the B2B space, it's much more challenging to use industry benchmarks, and I honestly think it would probably make you a little disappointed. You'll think you're a little further off from your goal. So I do think it's important to look at your base and try to be better than you were. And then look at, it doesn't even have to be what your open and click-through rates are. What are your revenue goals? And then use some of these creative ideas we've discussed to push the needle on those other items.
Great. And I think, yeah, just establishing that solid baseline to really be able to know what your markers are, because whether it's an industry standard or different things like that, it's all so personal to you and your business. Mary asks, do you have any advice on how to become proficient in pulling actionable insights from data?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. What you, I mean, it's kind of hard to give a satisfying answer to that, but what you want to do is figure out how to tell a story with your data. So look for, look for anything that stands out in the data. Look for anomalies that maybe suggest that, one particular email out of a multi-touch campaign did significantly better than others. Why is that? That sort of thing. Look for indicators of why your campaign was or wasn't successful. So if you're getting low open rates for certain kinds of emails, try to dig into that and look at why that is. Try to kind of pull a story out of the data. But I know that's not really a fully satisfactory answer to that. It's kind of hard to say.
Yeah, I would say practice makes perfect. I think it'll start to become more natural to you as you start to answer some of the questions, and maybe even starting of what am I trying to accomplish with this email or this program, and what data point could help me articulate that. And just starting from that sense, some of that might start to come together for you.
Yeah, understand what metrics relate to your goals, because your goals may be different depending on the nature of your campaign. So, if your goal is to just get brand awareness, then maybe you're looking at website visits and opens and that sort of thing to see whether your campaign was successful. Whereas if you're doing more of a low funnel campaign that's designed around sales enablement and driving prospects down the funnel, then you're looking more at creation of opportunities, creation of generation of revenue as your key metrics. So make sure your metrics relate to your goals. Figure out what key metrics you're going to measure in order to see whether you've been successful, and then measure yourself against those goals.
Wonderful. Well, any final questions? Looks like thoughts on how do you get your emails out of the Gmail promotions tab?
That's tricky.
Go ahead, Eli.
That's a tricky one. Well, I mean, they use sort of fuzzy algorithms to figure out, based on the subject lines and the content of your emails, what the subject of the email is. So avoid using promotional sounding text, free offer, and but wait, there's more type of language. Because they definitely do look at that. Another thing to think about is the nature of your target audience and whether your lists are clean. So we talked before about using email validation services, that sort of thing. You want to make sure that you're sending, ideally you want to send only to opted in, highly engaged audiences. If your emails are getting ignored a lot, then they're more likely to be viewed as promotional. Another thing to look at is basic deliverability, like SPF, DKIM, that sort of thing. That needs to be set up with your email service provider. They can help you make sure that you have the appropriate, deliverability infrastructure in place. And then if you're on a shared IP address, this depends on the details of how your email service provider works, but some service providers will put you on a shared email address with other people. So actions by other people on the same email address can affect your deliverability as well. If you have a large enough volume to support it, you might consider trying to get a dedicated IP address, but you can only do that if you have a large enough volume, which I would say is on the order of a couple 100,000 emails sent out per month to support a dedicated IP. Talk to your email service provider about what you can do to enhance your deliverability. Maybe getting yourself moved to a different IP pool in some cases can help with that. But it can be really tricky to get out of the promotional box.
Agreed. Eli covered that one.
On that note, it doesn't look like it looks like the chat's kind of gotten a little bit quiet. So just wanted
Erica, I do see one last question in the Q&A from Veronica about how are some ways to gain trust with the audience, particularly when using a list that is not specifically opted in. I would say, Veronica, that goes back to sort of that transparency and really acknowledging, if you can, where you may be getting that information from. They may be more likely to communicate with you if you're honest upfront about some of those areas, and then being very clear about what they can expect from you. It's not necessarily best practice to go out and get emails from other sources, so don't have incredibly high expectations that those customers are going to turn into your best performing emails, but it's a good way to start level setting with them.
Yeah, great.
Wonderful. Well, Brittany and Eli, thank you both so much for your valuable insights today. And if you guys want to, feel free to drop your contact information in the chat if anyone would like to reach out. And thank you to everyone attending today. We'll have more free webinars coming up on the topics, including how marketers can support a B2B sales team in tough times, as well as agile marketing, applying Scrum methods to scaling digital teams. For that one, I'm actually presenting. So if you'd like to learn about Scrum methods, feel free to join. And then I'll also place the links in the chat if anyone would like to register for those events. As well as, lastly, a huge thank you to our partners. We wouldn't be able to do this work without them and the support, and we very much appreciate them. So thank you all for attending, and we hope to see you in upcoming events soon.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.